Hello, everyone. My name is Faraz. I'm a second-year student at Tepper. It is my privilege to welcome you to the third Family Business Leadership Series talk at the Tepper School of Business and Swartz Center for Entrepreneurship. Today, we are excited to hear Emily Sheetz. Emily will be interviewed by Tepper faculty member and Swartz Center entrepreneur in residence at Carnegie Mellon, Meredith Grelly, who has launched this Family Business Leadership Speaker Series. This series is sponsored by the Tepper School of Business and Swartz Center for Entrepreneurship. I'm excited to introduce Emily. Emily is the Vice President of Strategy and IT at Sheetz and is responsible for the development of and execution of company strategy, information technology, business insights, and innovation, including the Sheetz Incubator. Emily grew the functions of strategy, innovation, and business insights since 2017. She previously held the title of the Director of Talent Development, responsible for all training and leadership development across the company. Emily has held positions in real estate, human resources, operations, store development, and information technology. She helped to launch the Sheetz Cafe project and has also served on the Sheetz Family Council. Prior to rejoining Sheetz, Emily helped to found Knightsbridge Schools International, a private for-profit K-12 school in London, an affiliate of Knightsbridge School. She spent 5 years leading business development and finance, helping open schools in Turkey, Montenegro, Colombia, and Panama. Emily previously worked in Deutsche Bank in debt capital markets and at Huron Consulting Group. Emily holds an MBA from Columbia Business School and her BS in economics from the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. She lives in Hollidaysburg, PA, with her husband Justin and their 3 children. Thank you.
Thank you, Faraz. Thank you all for being here. We are so excited to spend a lunch with you. I'm going to ask Emily a few questions that were actually provided to me by MBA students, and then we're going to save the last portion of the talk for your questions live. So I promise we'll get to you. Thank you for those of you who submitted questions. I really appreciate it. And a huge thank you to Dean Bajou, who is traveling at the moment, but we'll be meeting with Emily and Justin later in the Tepper School of Business for supporting this, as well as Dave Mowini, the Executive Director of the Swartz Center, who has supported this family business initiative from the start as well. Emily, thank you for being here.
Absolutely, I'm thrilled.
So Emily, you grew up in this phenomenal family business, but as Faraz talked through, you traveled many paths before deciding to come back to your family business. Can you talk about the decision and the path coming back to Pennsylvania?
Yes, absolutely. I do first want to say how special it is that you at the Swartz Center and Tepper have Meredith, who is leading this family business initiative. When I was in business school back in too long that I can't remember, I lamented that we did not have a family business discipline or even a recognition of it being a really important part of entrepreneurship. Tried to get a couple little events started here and there, but it's been a missing component of a really well-rounded and really, I think, relevant part of entrepreneurship. So thank you so much for what you're doing here, and I am so happy to be a part of it and support it in any way I can. Yeah, but so family business, yes, so Sheetz is family owned and operated. It was started by my uncle in 1952. I come from a very big family, so on my father's side there were 8 children. Oldest uncle, my father's the youngest. So by the time I was born, they had many years behind them as a business, but continued to kind of bring family members, brothers in to help run and grow Sheetz over those decades. I grew up with Sheetz around my dining room table, as they say, I mean, truly, and our, Thanksgivings and, every family holiday. Being a part of the company was certainly woven into our family fabric. It was something also that I would say had like a quiet reverence around it. It was something that we all really appreciated very strongly. but it was also kind of something that like the uncles did, perhaps. So as I was growing up, I didn't really know if there was a place for me there at the company, frankly. And we're in a convenience store business. In the 80s and the 90s in particular, it was a very male-dominated industry. It was a male-dominated company, so also being the oldest daughter as I was, very independent and going to go out and make my own way, I thought, well, I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to go do my own thing. I was, again, very enamored by, very respectful of what they had built as an organization, how they grew the company organically while maintaining, our family continuity, was just, really awe-inspiring to me. And so one of the things that I really wanted to do was try my own hand at entrepreneurship. Because by that time, it had grown to quite a big company, right? It wasn't that like small one-corner shop or even the 10-unit retail operation or 100-unit. It had grown to around 300 by the time I was, really thinking about my career outside of college. And I was a little bit yearning for that opportunity to try my own hand at entrepreneurship. I did get some great training, really, really great training in consulting and banking before that. Certainly not for me, but then did have the opportunity to work with the private school to expand internationally. So that was really my foray into entrepreneurship. I loved it. It was so fantastic. But, so my husband and I, we met at business school. Actually, we were in the same study group. Funny story. And so we had moved to London together, and as life changes, life moves on, we're thinking about starting a family. And things started to shift, I think, in the Sheetz organization at that time. They were thinking about creating a sustainable governance structure that would help us move into the next generation of leadership. So put some things in place there. Formally stated that they wanted to be family-owned and operated into the future. New leadership was coming on, so it seemed like there was an opportunity of change and evolution on the company side. But more importantly, I think my drive to go out there and pave my own way gave me a lot of experience. I made a lot of mistakes outside of my family business. I learned a lot, and I had something I could bring back to the organization that would add some value. I matured, right? And I think that those two things kind of coming together created an opportunity for us mutually to think, oh, there may be some space here to kind of foster that next generation to come in and continue to make that commitment and dedication to not only the family, but also our employees to remain family-owned and operated into the future.
Great. So you've touched on this transition period.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you would be willing to talk more about specific actions or structures that individuals took to ensure a successful leadership transition, and at this point or at other points throughout your tenure.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I can't say this enough that it is an evolution, as family businesses grow from maybe first generation to second generation, or you're bringing more family members on. I think each of those are kind of trigger points a little bit to take the next step into what governance may look like. So what that looked like at the very beginning with Bob was just saying to his brother, hey, Steve, I need you to come work with me so we can grow faster and I can have a succession plan, right? Like just brother to brother talk, which worked when they were that size, right? And then when we transitioned leadership from Steve onto Stan, it was a little bit more formalized. It was that time around 2010, we were just about celebrating or getting ready to celebrate our 60-year anniversary. And that's when what was really effectively that first generation, that first, all the brothers, like of that year, of that generation, knowing that they were going to be moving on, all of them, into retirement, and knowing that they want the legacy of the family to be retained. They want the longevity and sustainability of the family ownership. That's when they got, again, more serious about what should this governance structure look like. So, there are great family business advisory groups out there who can help you understand what governance looks like, how it's a little bit different for families. A big consideration is the family. So outside of the business, if you have shareholders who are within the family but not active in management, there's a big constituent, right? So we don't have to deal with public companies. It's such a blessing. We're not chasing quarterly results, but we do have this other very important and, again, long-term stakeholder that we have found is important to formalize their voice in the company if we want to kind of maintain that sustainability. So one of the ways we did that is forming what we call a family council. It seems a little funny to have to kind of put a formal structure around a family, but as you're working and coexisting within the context of a family business, it's really very valuable. So we call our family body our family assembly. That is, as we've defined it, it's anyone who's a descendant of, that family tree. They're in the family assembly, and then they elect a council, and that council elects the representative to sit on our board of directors. So that board of directors has direct influence from the family through that line. Also, just having a formal board of directors was a big step that we took that really formalized our structure that ensured that sustainability. Prior to that, like many family businesses of a certain size, we did have a board of advisors, but they had real no authority or power. It was all held up to shareholders. So that just provided a lot more structure to us as well. That was like very intentional, again, formal thinking by that first generation to make sure that things could move forward from there. But it's interesting, so we're in this next period of transition a little bit as well. I mean, only 10, 12, 13 years later, that act in around 2010 enabled me and my cohort, my little cohort of, there are like 3 of us who are around the same age, to come in and to have an opportunity to take in some leadership roles, things like that. So that would be me and my brother, Ryan, and my cousin Adam. So we are finding now that we have an opportunity to put a stamp on like what this transition looks like as we move forward. So we are recognizing that we have a role to play now in bringing the next generation behind us in maybe a more seamless way, maybe a more intentional way, so that we're looking forward to the next 50 years to say, what does the family participation in the business look like over time, and how can we foster that so we get, that really fantastic sustainable result?
Yeah, and it's in talking with you, I've learned that the majority of family members are not actively in the day-to-day management of Sheetz. Of all of these structures, especially as the family grows, continue to be more and more important, it sounds like.
Yes. I mean, if you count all the babies and all the weddings, we're growing every single year. So we're up to like 120 or something, I think. But maybe 10% of us are active management. And then we have maybe another 5% that are kind of at that board level. But yes, so it's really important, number one, that we keep that whole family connected to the organization in some way as they get more dispersed, right? As they get farther away from, I should say, like being close to the management of it. But then also create opportunities where the next generation feels a pool to come back and contribute as well.
It's a recruiting effort.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
We know about those. Okay.
Yes.
Well, in addition to being a family business, you are also an incredibly innovative business. This is one of the things that comes to mind when we think of Sheetz, for sure. Our students are curious what you believe the top 3 features of the Sheetz experience are that differentiate it from other convenience stores and gas stations.
Yeah, so this is a great question. In 2017, when I was able to start our strategy practice and then build from there innovation and the insights group, some really important strategic work we did at that point was to really ground ourselves in what is our business model. And it's different than the normal gas station, right? So it's, we compete in fuel, we compete in convenience, but we also compete in food service. So it's like these 3 different business models that are coming together, and like it's a pretty complex operation to handle. Frankly, it's really high capital intensive. Most of them are. So I don't know if anybody would actually go into this business right now in their right mind, frankly, but we're in it. So, I mean, that does create great barriers to entry, right? But what we did then is to really understand, like, well, where does our competitive advantage come from, given that's the business model that we're operating? And so I think this is what kind of differentiates us, really, and just enables us to do things our way. First, it is this combined business model. We call it the combined mission, or the ultimate one-stop shop, right? And the way that we articulate that as a brand, in which we say, hey, we provide a unique offer, and to double down on that, we're going to give that to you whenever you want it. So we're 24/7. We have variety. Across what we offer, there's variety. So there's a breadth of the offer too. So whatever you're into, there's a lot of choices. So the way that that comes to life in our brand, I think, is a differentiator for us. Again, it's complex, it's difficult to operate, but when we do it right, it's a great experience. We call our brand promise what you want, how you want it, when you want it. I think the 4th part of that is our second component of our competitive advantage. It's density and scale. That gives you where you want it. Right, so the more Sheetz stores that we have in a location, the easier it is for you to get your needs met. It's that convenience factor of like, well, where are you? So going to the real estate component, like if we can build out a density in a marketplace, it improves sales across all of our locations, and it just improves the customer experience as well. Scale also, again, provides, as we continue to grow, we're there more where you want us. The 3rd component of our competitive advantage is vertical integration. And we started vertically integrating back through our supply chains in the 80s, 90s, always with the intent of delivering a better customer experience at that across the counter. Right? So we got into fuel distribution because we didn't have great service from our third-party provider. From there, we got into supply and trading so we could get the best fuels, at the best prices. We started our own distribution center, our own commissary. We do our own store maintenance. We do our own store development. So we've just grown our enterprise with the full intent of meeting that end customer's needs in the best possible way. That creates great advantages for us because we can be really flexible and nimble into what products we put on shelves. For example, we can bring a really, really small supplier in and distribute them to a handful of stores because we do it all ourselves. It also creates some challenges, right? So it makes it more difficult for us to leapfrog to Florida like Wawa did because we're vertically integrated and we have density and scale. So you'd have to replicate that entire operation in a totally new geography.
But you are doing that in some geographies, and we are going to get to that, right?
a little bit, but in a different way, in a way that matches, our business model, what it really is true to us.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I have to say the 4th thing, so that you asked for 3, I have 4 though.
That's great.
Is that we're family owned and operated. I mean, we're privately held, which means we can make investments for the long term, and we use that to our advantage. We invest in our people, we invest in innovation. And we invest in our communities. And I think that really gives us an advantage. And I don't think it's something that is recognized enough, how valuable it is to be privately owned. Mm-hmm. We do not have pressure from outside shareholders. We can do whatever we want. And it really allows us to imagine, right, and dream really big.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you are a very early partner to Tesla, 10 years now.
Yeah,
strong.
something like that, yeah.
So you don't need me to tell you that some in our audience may have traveled here in their electric or hybrid car. How do you envision this energy transition presenting opportunities or challenges? What do you imagine your world looking like going forward?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, it's certainly something, you know, a shift in the like macro trends of the world that's going to impact our business for sure. But we're frankly excited about it. I mean, as Meredith said, we got early partnership with Tesla. I think it's about 10 years ago. And for a while there, we were their largest retail partner nationally. They told us, hey, we want to put chargers in these locations. We said, sure, absolutely. So it was a partnership that we got into mostly because we like to learn new things. We like to know what's going on. We like to be on the forefront of whatever's happening to our industry. We do not make any money from it. That's fine, though. I mean, so what we are learning, though, is, oh, and by the way, I also drive a Tesla, so I can totally understand that customer's experience. Right, and I'll tell you, like, there is no better place to charge your car when you're traveling on a road trip. Other options include the back of a hotel in the dark, or you know, a closed shopping center. But at a Sheetz, you know, we provide those exact same amenities that we do for anybody who's looking to fuel up, right? Like safe, clean, great bathrooms, you know, great selection of food and snacks and all those things. So we are very interested in continuing to expand on how we can be the stop of choice for any EV customers. So we have long developed partnerships with Electrify America and EVgo or whomever else comes up into the industry. At the same time, you know, we're looking at you know, opportunities that we can get into that business ourselves because those opportunities are opening up in the states, in some of the states that we operate in now. So we're always trying to like make sure that we know exactly what's going on in terms of regulations and take advantage of any opportunities. And yeah, continue to make that customer experience, whether you're an EV driver or a traditional fuel driver, like the same and a great experience.
So another example of how you've worked to make Sheetz an innovator in the industry, the Sheetz Cafe, your robust made-to-order program. You've brought on the amazing Mary Beth Green, who is here in an innovation leadership role. And you've established, most recently, an incubator in Pittsburgh. Can you talk about the goals of the incubator and the choice to establish it here?
Absolutely. So we're so excited to be in Pittsburgh, and this really came about thanks to a partnership with the Pittsburgh Technology Council and Audrey Russo. This was pre-pandemic. My goodness, we probably started speaking with her in like 2018, and they hosted an amazing kind of week event for us to really introduce us to the ecosystem around innovation and technology in Pittsburgh. We had a kind of startup showcase at their location in Nova Place. We did a whole day at Carnegie Mellon, you know, with all the different schools, learning about a lot of the different activities and innovation and technology that are happening here. We visited some companies located here, and it really inspired our executive group to say, why aren't we here? Pittsburgh is right in our backyard. It's 2 hours away from our headquarters. There's so much opportunity. There are so many exciting things happening here. We know we can't do everything on our own. Like, let's make an investment in Pittsburgh. So that was 2018. Mary Beth joined us in 2019 to help create this presence of Sheetz in Pittsburgh, firstly focused around innovation. And the team that she's built here, we call our incubator. Very specifically, for the past 20 plus years, our vision at Sheetz has been to put Sheetz as we know it out of business. We're constantly trying to evolve, what does convenience mean, right? And so what we realized as we were doing some of this strategy work is we've grown so much in scope and scale. right, which is fantastic. But we are a different company than when we were innovating and putting ourselves out of business in the 80s. And so we just needed a little bit of a different approach. So the incubator was created to ensure that we had a space, resources, and teams that are enabling us to put the Sheetz of today out of business without asking the teams who are running the Sheetz of today to put themselves out of business. If that makes sense. Like, that was just too complex. Like, for anybody, it would be. But so really helps us to bring the most innovative practices and tools and techniques to the table through Mary Beth and her team to help build out our relationship with the ecosystem here at Pittsburgh and continue to grow that and grow our innovative activities overall. So
Yeah, and
we're so excited.
We actually talk about in commercialization and innovation here how geographic distance from central hub can be important for an incubator's success.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Pittsburgh, it is the frontier. Can you provide, just to dig a little deeper on that, on how Sheetz, maybe an example of how Sheetz is leveraging technology to enhance the customer experience?
Sure, yeah. So I had the privilege of also working with our technology group as of 2 years ago. I'm not a technical person at all, so I'm in way over my head, that's for sure. But what I can say is that we, in typical Sheetz fashion, I kind of referenced this before, we're always striving and driving to meet the customer's needs as best we can. So we've done a fantastic job over, I think over our history. We were the first to have order points, if you didn't know that, back in the 90s. We brought that technology. It was supposed to be point of sale technology, and our CEO at the time said, hey, can you turn that around? Make it a customer interface? It's 93, so that's a pretty cool
That is
story.
very
Yeah, and
cool.
it's continued to evolve. But that's always been important to us. So, we were kind of one of the first, certainly first convenience stores, but even early in retail to get into the loyalty program. So that was a way to deploy some technology that we just kept building on. So well, what if we did this? What if we did this? So we did invest in a mobile app. I would think it was 2013, 2014. Continued to build that, to build its features, to improve and enhance that customer experience, or give them how they want to interact with us. And we had a lot of pieces in place, curbside, Sheetz Go, which is just scan and go, and all those things. We had a lot of those things in place and in test already. Then the pandemic happened, and we said, oh, well, we'll just flip these on straight away. And it was fantastic because it really enabled us to continue. We were an essential business, so we were open, but it enabled us to make sure our employees and customers felt as safe as possible when transacting with us. So that was a really great kind of success story for us. At this point, we think that there is a ton of opportunity to leverage technology even more deeply to enhance that customer experience going forward. We are going through a major effort to transform a lot of our legacy technology architecture to a place where we're able to deliver that. Our insights group is based here in Pittsburgh. They're working on the architecture, the data architecture behind that as well. So I'm really excited about what we're going to be able to talk to you about in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, you're building.
But it's certainly something that is very, very important to us, that is of strategic importance, that we continue to invest in and work very deeply in.
Great. So I want to switch gears from innovation and technology. We have a number of real estate entrepreneurs in the room, and they are curious to understand how you evaluate expansion into new regions. And I'm particularly curious to hear about this data-driven model that you first deployed, perhaps in the Columbus market.
Yes, it was Columbus. Yeah. So first I'll say we have 70 years of experience of real estate development. Internally, our group has done an absolute amazing job of really picking great sites across markets, across states, into new markets. So we have a lot of really in-depth expertise, knowledge, and experience that we're bringing to the table. With our shift in strategy, we started thinking, oh, I should say too, like, so they're very, very skilled at site selection, like individual sites. And so we have spent a lot of time looking at the metrics of individual stores, which has been a successful strategy for us. As we've gotten larger and as competition has increased, our strategy has informed us, hey, we should also be looking a little bit more to market, from a market lens as well. So that's been a shift for us. I think it's been a good shift, but it doesn't negate, all of that strength that we have at really understanding the success metrics of an individual store, because that's so important to retail. So it was just an opportunity when we decided we wanted to expand into a new territory to take a little bit of a different approach. Now that competitive advantage I talked about, that density and scale and the brand, this unique business model, all of those things, we've really found that the best way for us to expand is to, we call it like mushroom out. So like rather than leapfrog to a new place that has no idea what we are, no idea even what our business model is, because bringing that food service with convenience and gas is typical for the Northeast now, right? Or I even say the East Coast with Sheetz and Wawa. We have great competitors who we really enhance each other in a sense because we're unique. And then when we're both there together, like, oh yeah, we know what you are. We get you. Yes, we're absolutely comfortable and happy to get food at a gas station. When you go to places who have the typical, like stereotypical gas station, like absolutely not, would never eat there, if my life depended on it. So, so that like not only brand awareness, but business model awareness is really important to us to make sure that when we enter a new market, when we open a new store, it has a better chance of being successful because people get it, right? They get it and they're willing to engage and interact with like all components of that business model. So that, the vertical integration, so just getting our delivery trucks, like it just makes sense that they need to go to like the next place rather than a place that's like 6 hours away. Yeah. So the way that we grow that makes sense with how we operate is to kind of mushroom out. That's different for everybody. That just happens to be a unique combination of the activities that make Sheetz, that makes that the right choice for us. But so given that, then we said, well, how can we make the right selection? And yes, so Columbus, we entered that market, I think it was about 3 years ago. I'm sorry, the pandemic like screws up my like
for all of us,
time and space. I think this will be our third year of operation. And we took a really different approach. We said, hey, we know density helps. So let's go as fast as possible. Let's be really aggressive in how we enter this market. Let's make sure we have everybody on board. So previously, real estate had done a fantastic job of driving our growth strategy. But if we were going to do things a little differently, we recognized, hey, we better have brand and marketing at the table, operations at the table, distribution at the table, fuel supply and trading at the table so that we can make the best decision for the overall enterprise in which market that is. And it worked out really nicely with Columbus because it happened to be, I call it this like unicorn that had been sitting on our doorstep, like ringing the doorbell for years, and we finally answered it, right? So it's been immensely successful for us. I think that the approach that we took there can continue to be successful for us. Probably not another Columbus, but so we're deploying that again. We made the announcement in the fall that we'll be entering a new state. That's Michigan in the Detroit metro area, so we're really excited about that. And in that instance, we were able to apply deeper analytics. So our business insights was able to get in on the forefront of that decision and really apply some data modeling to help us understand the market opportunity, of course, but then also the site opportunity. So it gave us this way of looking at the entire marketplace from a 10,000-foot view and a corner view. And then they're working with our site selectors who are bringing their knowledge and expertise of site selection to really hone in on how do we go to market in the best way. So it's been really exciting to kind of bring together more advanced analytics with that legacy expertise I'm really excited to see how Michigan works out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for Columbus and now Detroit, for this high density launch model, what is critical mass? What are the number of stores that you look to bring to market?
Well, they're different for each market, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to say, like, I think we're aiming for 65 in Columbus, and the original intent was to do that over 5 or 6 years. The pandemic certainly slowed us down, but we're certainly opening at a clip, at a pace that is different than we have ever done. Detroit is something like 85, so Detroit Metro. Similar, like fast clip, we want to be able to have different, clusters of stores opening, so it's creating that density and scale. It helps with operations as well, as if you can imagine, like in a retail setting, we have, let's say we employ 30 people in our stores, to be able to have that other store that you can pull from, that you can just be able to connect with, work with, is really, really helpful.
When this is another question from our real estate MBAs. They're curious about the primary considerations in your mind when you're scouting new regions and locations for Sheetz.
Yep, great question. So it was saying there are a lot of different factors that can play into this, and it's been great to bring those to the table. So I would say first and foremost, we start with our combined business model, which is fuel, food service, and convenience. Convenience is like pretty easy. You can kind of do that anywhere. Fuel is a very fragmented and very complex. It is not something that I can talk to you about today because I am not skilled enough to do so, but it's very fragmented and complex supply system across the United States. And so it is not one size fits all, and not all markets are equal. But I will just tell you, like, the fuel margins that you get in North Carolina are very slim because there's a lot of gas flowing through the state through the pipeline that they have there. There are other states where they do not have a lot of fuel flowing through them, so the margins are much greater. So when you have greater fuel margins just at the onset, it is a much more profitable place to set up operations. That's a big consideration. Another consideration, though, is like how familiar with or amenable to our unique business model is a certain population. We did find that, like in North Carolina, for example, they had never had food at a gas station and never thought they would, right? So we had a lot of work to do to change hearts and minds to convince them that, like, no, this is actually something, good that you'd like to eat. But still, we still like tripped up a bit. Like, there are just different preferences in different areas of the country. We do not know how to make a good biscuit, for example, and they really, really care about biscuits. So that's a bit of a fail, right? Or tea. Tea was another one. Like, we just did not know how to do tea. So it took us a really long time to figure out, like, there's a certain appeal that our certain product categories, or product lines, the way that we do business, like the way people are across the counter, that is like kind of homegrown to this region of the country, that is just a little bit different in other regions. So we have a very, very tight-knit culture and a very, very tight-knit way of doing things. And it doesn't mean that it can't work in other places, but we have learned that we have to be mindful that, there are nuances to places. So that's another thing that's really important to us. Like, do we vibe with the local population?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Columbus, you did.
Yeah. Columbus,
Michiganders,
for sure.
they're going to be on board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We feel very confident about that.
Yeah. They'll eat from a gas
Yeah.
station.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm a Michigander. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
I didn't know. Okay, great. That's a great data point. Thank you.
So I think at this point, we would love to give you all the opportunity to ask Emily Sheetz your questions. Thank you, first of all, to Emily for joining us for this portion and sharing. everything that you did. It's very gracious of you to spend this time with
Oh,
us.
absolutely. Yeah, happy
And
to.
now Faraz you're gonna walk around. So if you have a question for Emily, please raise your hand and we will get to you.
Since you're here. Hi, Emily. Thanks so much for being here today. My name's Pat O'Donnell. This is Ron Gabriel. We run a direct store delivery automation startup called Shelfmark.
Cool.
And I'm curious, as you talked about the rich data available in your retail stores, how do you think about integrating that up your integrated business? Through your vertically integrated, whether it's fuel distribution or beyond, or to your third-party partners. How do you handle that challenge of data integration, which we all know is difficult?
It certainly is. So we know how important it is, and we have a major effort to be able to do that better. We see such an opportunity of having that real-time data accessible across our entire value chain, internally and with partners. We do not have the architecture today that enables it. So that's what our team here in Pittsburgh is working very diligently on delivering for us. I'm very excited for what it's going to be able to do for our business. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. So you sort of alluded to this earlier when talking about sort of the change to electric vehicles going forward. And I'm curious, when you think of the process of fueling up a car and the experience at Sheetz, typically you fuel up and then you park and you go in and maybe you get your food or use the restroom. But with an electric vehicle, you're a much more captive audience, right? You're there for 20, 30, 40 minutes, maybe, depending on what you need. And so I'm curious how you're thinking about the experience of Sheetz, whether you can extend what you currently offer or whether Sheetz needs to fundamentally reorient what it provides its customers, given that different customer experience.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and that really gets to like innovation, as we're trying to like think through this of like a spectrum of innovation. So I think there's some things that we can do as a core business right now that enhance and improve that experience. Simple example, like iconic feature of our fueling is the red canopy, right? So you have this like bright red canopy that has the amenities you need, makes it easy. We could put a bright red canopy over, the fueling, the electric chargers, right? So it provides, again, access, protection from weather, just a more comfortable experience. How about some garbage cans out there? Like we have trash in our cars too. Or, windshield wiper, any of those things. So like those are some really simple things that we can do to just like make that experience a little bit nicer and to let EV customers know, hey, Sheetz knows what you need, we know what you want, and we got your back. So there are things like that. There are different product offerings that we can do. But then the incubator can be looking at, well, what does the future of that customer experience and engagement look like, and how can we start to shift our business in different ways that help us be the preferred destination in 2035 and 2050.
Got you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for coming in, Emily. My name's Anderson. I could really relate to what you were saying about the feel of need to bring kind of value back to the family business from my own experiences. And so could you kind of talk about what your brothers did before they came back to the family? They were in your cohort?
Yes, my brother and my cousin, they always knew that they wanted to come back to the family business. And so they were kind of told, well, you have to go out and work, and you have to go out and get an MBA, and you can come back. So that was their path, certainly very different. But they have great outside experience and great education to also bring to the table. Yeah, so I mean, it's all been different.
Is that institutionalized, that rule at this point, or is it an informal rule that's persisted?
Yeah, it's an informal rule that, us as a cohort, we're trying to bring more clarity to, more transparency and consistency. As we're looking at recruiting the next generations. I mean, we want to be really clear too. Like we're a giant enterprise with opportunities in, logistics, in health and wellness. We have our own wellness center. We have food safety. We have food manufacturing. Like we just have experiences across the board. You don't have to be somebody who wants to go into leadership to, come and work for the family business. We'd love to have everybody, no matter what their interest or ambition. So we want to formalize that a little bit more so we can bring more people in.
Got it.
That like get outside experience, get higher education is more like a leadership track.
Hi, Emily. Thank you for your time. My name is Chris. I'm a second-year MBA student. I was wondering if you could circle back to vertical integration for a moment.
Sure.
I was wondering if you'd talk through the decision-making process regarding prioritizing what might be core to the business, and or maybe an example of a time where you've determined that something is not as important to keep within the vertical integration, and decided to let maybe an outside service take that.
Yeah, great question. I think we're always evaluating those opportunities. So I will say our strategic decision-making prioritizes the retail business. It prioritizes the end customer. So while we have distribution as its kind of own business unit, it makes a lot of its own decisions, it's not going to get priority to resourcing over something that is closer to the core customer. But we still, recognize the importance of making sure that it is delivering a better service than an outside third party would. I would say that's something that we're pretty committed to continuing to do, but there have certainly been times where we have gone in and out of, let's say, private label. We have used that kind of vertical integration. I mean, we've brought some in-house. We have contracted, as people do with third party, to provide that product for us. It's not a core strategic lever that we pull. It's more of one that we pull in vendor management and in product management. So that's one example where we've kind of gotten out. But I would say generally, when we get into something, we're pretty committed to it, especially if we bring people in. We are a customer first, people very close second company. And so we tend to make things work because we can, again, we don't have that pressure. We can make things work. So, I mean, that's really important to us. So we usually don't get out of things. Okay. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Hi, my name's Luke. I'm a second-year MBA student.
Hi.
Over the past few years, we've seen a lot of price inflation, and I suspect Sheetz has probably been hit at every angle from that, whether it's rise in fuel prices or raw materials for the service or the food service that's available. Mm-hmm. How has your group been engaged in minimizing the impact of that?
Yeah, great question. So we recognize that a core benefit that we provide to our customers is value. Like, we know who our customers are. We know that they can't, they don't have a ton of disposable income. So we understand that very well. We do try our very best to make sure that we are delivering value, everyday low price, that kind of approach for our customers. We have been hit very hard by consumer packaged goods on inflation. I mean, those are the suppliers who have been pushing prices up significantly. We saw quite a bit of that as well. Actually, we saw price hikes and we saw just lack of supply on a lot of food service things throughout the pandemic. Like, that was very much real. Because we run our own distribution center, we can be extremely nimble and we can play vendors off of each other. So we just very recently made a very, very big decision with one very big consumer packaged goods company to drop them in favor of another one because their prices were just not, they were unreasonable for us to be delivering to our customers. So we're able to make decisions like that. We're able to switch in and out of products. While we obviously want to maintain a quality and a taste profile, but at the same time, we're always trying to balance that with price. And because we are vertically integrated, we can do that. Yeah, our team is absolutely phenomenal. Our kind of merchandising, category management, and buying teams are phenomenal at managing that. Like it's a really significant competency that we have. It's played very well through the pandemic and now through this high inflationary period.
Hi, Emily. Richard Citrin. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
One of the things that I think is so distinguishing for Sheetz is the marketing and branding work, and particularly the kind of generative style of Sheetz freaks, of which I am one.
Thank you.
You know, and I even had a complaint about removal of the soft serve machines in the store, and I posted something on Twitter about it or Facebook, and got a great response from somebody explaining that, you know, the teenagers were coming in and throwing ice cream around and everything else. So, you know, it was just so great to get that response, and I think that's such a distinctive factor of the Sheetz brand. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, well, because we're talking about family business, I will say that my brother is actually responsible for the brand, and he does a phenomenal job. And it is so fun to be able to work with your brother, sister, cousins, etc. I think that one of the things that has been pervasive about our company is our unique brand voice over time. And it's something that we really treasure and we really foster and continue to evolve, right? Because that, you know, the brand is a reflection of our culture, globally as well as, you know, our internal culture. So yeah, I mean, that's Ryan. He has just done a fantastic job of bringing authenticity, bringing our humor, bringing his humor in particular, you know, to that voice in a way that really resonates with people. He doesn't get in the way of the brand. He brings people who understand its relevance, who it is relevant to the table, our customers in particular, to help shape, you know, what that brand experience is. Yeah, and I think they've just done a fantastic job of translating, you know, what that has been in terms of a store experience and then like traditional advertising print media into a virtual media, like social media realm. I think it has a very authentic and consistent voice throughout. So thank you.
And we probably have time for one or maybe two more. So this.
Hey, thank you so much, Emily. My name is Prashanth. I'm a first-year MBA student. Could you talk more about your expansion strategy? Are there any plans to kind of go abroad, international? And then secondly, I just want to say thanks for making the tire pressure machine free. It's very valuable during the winter, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely. Expansion plans. So this gets into a little bit of strategy. So this was right before the pandemic. We got really confident in, you know, understanding our business model. We got really confident in understanding our competitive advantage. And we looked out in the world, what was happening. This was literally like February 1st of 2020. He said, you know what, we have this great opportunity to capture some share and capture new marketplaces over the next decade at a minimum. So we said, let's say through 2030 or this decade, we're going to grow aggressively our core business as it is today, because we think that we have this opportunity where fuel demand is not yet on its decline in our particular footprint and surrounding footprint, that we can go in, we can establish our presence, we can capture share, and then as that demand erodes over the next 20 years, because again, we have this long-term view, we will be in a position to capture more share, so more of that shrinking pie. Right. And we don't want to just be sitting there with our core business getting more and more of a shrinking pie. We want to also be recreating, you know, what that business is. But our expansion strategy for our core business today was predicated on that idea. And then it was more like, well, and then we'll reassess, right? Because the events are always shifting in the marketplace and the economy. Depends on how quickly, you know, that EV adoption penetration happens. That's dependent on a lot of different factors. So we said we would reassess. But so our current goal is to get to 1,000 stores by 2028. And that's going to take us to, we're in Columbus, it's going to take us to Michigan, it'll probably take us to 1 or 2 new markets after that. And like strategically, we'll just continue to reassess like what our position is in the marketplace at that point in time, and what innovations we've been able to establish at that point to figure out our next growth strategy. But in retail, you're always growing, right? We always say like a core belief of ours is that you grow or you die. So we always got to grow in some way.
We're good for another.
Hi, Emily. My name's Tess. I'm the CEO of Fine Art Miracles. And you said you have a health center. Sheetz has everything in the world. I had no idea you have a health center. Could you talk about that for just a minute?
Yes, it's called our Schwellness Center because we have to we have to put an SH or a Z on everything. So it's for our employees. So it's just for our employees. We actually have an early learning center as well for our employees. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think that you could probably find information about it on our website, particularly on our, job postings. We always like to put, our employee benefits that we provide. But yeah, so it's a wellness center. We contract with Marathon Health to operate it. We have it in our 2 locations in North Carolina, Burlington, where we have a distribution center, and then Claysburg, our main center. We are piloting being able to open those centers in new markets where we built density, like Columbus, coming up here now. So we want to be able to expand these benefits across all of our employee base. So we're just trying to figure out how to do that. But yeah, it's fantastic. So we do health and wellness, diagnostic, prescription, blood work, mental health services, and then fitness classes and all of those things as well.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that's a bright note to end on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Emily,
you're
again, for
welcome.
coming in. And thank all of you for spending lunch learning here today. You get lunch now. That's exciting. Those boxes that Allison has been guarding out there on your behalf are now up for grabs, so you can file on out. Emily has another meeting upstairs in a few minutes, but we can keep her here for just a little bit if you want to. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.